All right, everyone. Good morning. Welcome back to the Sober Broker podcast. This is a space where we are having honest conversations about addiction, recovery, leadership, faith, business, and rebuilding a life that you're actually proud to live. This isn't about perfection, it's about transformation. And this is what happens when someone decides that the chaos within them stops. Today, I'm honored to welcome Mike Dorato to the show. Mike's story isn't just about getting sober, it's about identity. It's about what happens when coping mechanisms collapse and you're forced to confront who you really are. So if you're listening right now, if you feel stuck, or if you've ever felt like you're living beneath your potential, you've ever wondered whether change is actually possible, this conversation is for you. If you're listening on this podcast today, we talk about the person before the fall, the collapse, the turning point, and the rebuild. Because sobriety isn't just about quitting something, it's about truly becoming something new. Mike, grateful you're here, brother. I'll let you take the wheel from here.
Thank you, Patrick. Great to be here. And I love the key points you talked about, like transformation. Like transformation really happens in sobriety. I think a lot of times people will say, well, I don't drink, so I'm sober. And if you look it up in the dictionary, sober means clear thought. So I know there's, just for me, many times in my life, I wasn't drinking, but man, did I not have clear thoughts. I wouldn't be sober. I definitely couldn't say I was sober, and thank you for allowing me to be on this pod. And, so my sober date or God separated me from the drink on 2/6/99. And so, last month was 27 years without a drink or a drug. And I'm just really grateful to God and for the ability to serve him and point other people to him. And, as we were talking before, we did this, recovering out loud. It's really become a theme of my life here since I moved to South Florida 4 years ago. So briefly, like what I was like before, I was a train wreck, when we got to know each other last week. If I want to sum up college in one sentence, it's the best 10 years of my life, and that's the joke, that's the punchline. But active addiction really became prominent in college, and I went to college in Wilmington, North Carolina, and I'm not blaming the institution in UNCW on my drinking or my friends or anything like that. It was my first love connection, like feeling the drink and feeling that in recovery community we call ease and comfort, and it was like I could breathe, and I chased it. And then 3 years into my college career, I had my first manic episode. And oftentimes I hear people say they suffer from mental health challenges. And what I've learned in recovery is pain is necessary, but suffering is optional. The transformation for me in my life has been working with great professionals and really taking control to the best of my ability and doing a joint venture with the mental health professionals to have the best existence, because you create your own destiny in recovery everywhere in life, really, not just in anywhere you're at. You're going to create your own destiny. So I didn't know that at 21 when that happened. So, really quick, went back to college a few years later, drinking the whole nine. And then at 26 years old, I hit a bottom. And, God came down and touched me, man. And I know this is more of we can openly talk about addiction ministry up here. So there's a parable in the Gospel of Luke. It kept opening to the same page. I'm not a Bible guy. I wasn't saved, any of that stuff. But the parable is about a publican and a Pharisee. And the Pharisee is like, yo, God, thank you so much. I'm the man. I'm so great. And the publican, the tax collector is like, God, please have mercy on the sinner. And so Jesus' message was, he who exalts himself will be humbled. He who humbles himself will be exalted. And I hit a bottom there, and slowly but surely my life started to transform. I got, I had to go back to the psychiatric unit, and this was my second manic episode. And it's funny, man. Like a common theme inside the manic episode is the messianic. You feel like you're God, and it's not like I'm saved. Everything's hunky dory. And the psychiatrist was like, no, you're in a manic episode. But I don't know. 27 years later, I definitely think God touched me that morning. I wouldn't be sitting here, So he, I was talking to some former coworkers where I worked at, and he quoted another very famous parable, or message in the Bible, with God all things are possible. And so That's been my message, man. That's been my experience in the recovery community in New Jersey. My first 20 years of recovery were in New Jersey, and we say if you keep one hand God and one hand in recovery, you want to have a hand to pick up the drink. And that's been my experience. With 9 years, mental health came back into my life. I had 9 years sobriety. I was 35, and my father went in for a kidney transplant, and I stayed up at night. I had been off medication for years. Was drinking coffee, doing a third shift with him at the hospital, trying to, because he was in ICU. We didn't know if he was going to pass away, and I immediately got triggered into my third manic episode, and that was a challenge. I mean, that was my biggest bottom with 9 years of recovery, and I went on a God strike. And that's the thing. Like what I've learned is like challenges are not punishment. Like we say they're tests, but they become testimonies. So like the worst part of my life actually became the strongest. And so I went through the mental health system with sober eyes, not a sober mind, but with sober eyes. And then that's where I was able to see like the formation of Angels Over Addiction from there. Is like, wow, man, here I am. I've been in recovery for years. I've had this experience, and I'm playing small by just hiding out in 12-step meetings, sharing, what God's done for me.
Mm.
It's really there's a call to arms here, like because we're very quiet in 12-step land, but the disease, the devil, he's playing full blast, bro. He's not playing soft. He's very loud. And so, like, I feel as a recovery community, whatever it is, whether it's Celebrate Recovery, whether it's Recovery Church, 12-step world, whatever you do, Smart Recovery, there's so many different avenues out there, but to help somebody else. Because right now, a lot of people are going to die during this hour podcast, however long we're going to talk, from the disease, and they may not have had the opportunity if somebody was open about the recovery and how they could have helped somebody else. Nobody knows where to turn now. And yes, I feel like I'm getting on a soapbox here. I'm gonna chill back down here a little bit, but they so
Oh,
so 4 years ago I moved here and into South Florida. So I live in Boynton Beach. I attend a lot of Delray Beach meetings, and I'm just trying to be of service and point people to recovery and God, man. Just like what those old timers did for me many years ago.
amen, bro. Amen. Yeah, you said something I really liked. You're turning tests into testimonies, and that's a that's a great little creates a good vision for me as
Yeah,
far as, I can literally see myself, sitting down, taking the test, and then getting an A, and that A taking me to doing a whole new life.
yeah.
So it's really cool.
Another one I always say is like she'll say I'm a mess. My life is a mess. And well, that mess becomes a message of hope. He
Yes.
takes our mess
Yeah.
and turns it into a message. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's just it's crazy on the other side of it. When you look at it, that's like the power of words. I've studied neurolinguistic programming, and as a salesman, I'm sure you can present yourself differently in a sales situation. It's the same thing
Yeah.
in life, man. If I say I suffer from mental health, I might as well still be in the tech unit, dude, in the day room, But if I say, hey, man, I'm emanating, I'm talking about grace, joy, love, happiness. I'm exuding a different energy, and then I'm able to shift somebody else's energy, hopefully. And I think that's what God wants out of us.
Man. Yeah, it's powerful. I think we often overcomplicate what it takes to be able to shift the perspective, shift your energy from one place to the other. And I think that's one of my, leading things that kind of led me into my dark places was just not being able to shift out of those times, shift my perspective, think about, you know, but ultimately how my decisions have impacted other people too, not just, how I responded and not really seeing any issues with it.
Right. Yeah, and it brings it back biblically too. So I've done shadow work, young and fair. One of my coaches, she's really big on shadow work. And so I'm like Mr. Pollyanna positive all the time. She's like, well, there's got to be something going on. And, Jesus's message, nobody lights a candle and puts it under a basket. So the shadow, like if it emitting a shadow, if I put light on a different way, the shadow's going to look differently. So in the guise of 12-step recovery, we talk a lot of times selfishness, self-centeredness becomes a feed of our active addiction, but then the recovery, we're looking for it. And for me, I'm like, okay, if my core is selfish and self-centered, let me allow my spirit to be selfless and giving. So then that energy is going to emit differently. So during the day, I'm looking for opportunities to serve others and to support others. And then suddenly I'm not thinking about how I'm a piece of crap that's always thinking about himself. And then it's just a different energy and a different frame. And yeah, I mean, we talk in recovery about like being altruistic. And if we were just altruistic as a nation, as a world, it'd be a different look right now.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
What's your morning mantra when you get up? How do you? Because I mean, you said you already got it this morning. You walked 5 miles. What do you
Yeah.
do to
So
get yourself going?
I, I'm like dedicated. So Angels Over Addiction, the nonprofit I have, it's just my ritual stack really. So the first thing I do is I meditate, pray, so I connect to God immediately. Then I'll stretch a little bit while I'm listening to worship music. We do positive self-talk as part of our program. So as I'm working out, I'll listen to worship music or something positive. And then I'll Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm gonna lift and then walk, or I'm just gonna walk like today. It's a Tuesday, so I just walk the whole time and same time listen to worship music. Got to see a little bit of that moon eclipse, wherever that was this morning, the blood moon or whatever. So
Yeah,
yeah, so just being out, say hello to people. I'm a Dunkin' Donuts guy, but I'll go to Starbucks and say hello to them because there's one right here in my neighborhood. So it's just going out and I'll get some calls from guys. Gratitude lists are a big thing here in South Florida. People will text me what they're grateful for, and I read them. A lot of people just discount them. I read them. I'm like, man, I love that, and I'll spit some gratitude to them. And you know, the disease of alcoholism and really mental health centers in your mind. So if I can change my operating system and think about positivity, joy, love, grace, that disease does not have the same power over me that it did, 27 years ago.
yeah. Very much like the RAS, man, in your brain, the reticular activating system. I mean, the more you think about something, the more it's gonna be there in your body, in your mind, in your world. It's gonna exist. You know?
Yeah, 100%. I geek on all that content, and I love it. So, and it's like they don't teach you that. They don't teach you that. Like when I went into mental health, like you have a chemical imbalance. I was like, well, what does that mean? Well, yes, it's a medication for the rest of your life. Okay, but what else does that mean? Like help me to help myself. And so it's really been like developing, seeking outside help and then bringing that in, like doing a joint venture with the doctors and stuff like that. You know,
Mhm.
but yeah, there's so reticular activating system. Walking in the morning with the sunshine, Andrew Huberman's big on that. So the neurotransmitters will set your circadian rhythm. So then your endorphins are going to flow naturally. That's a big, big thing with mental health. And it's not out there. It's not out there, or it's not out there enough. We don't know about it. We're just like, take this medication, you'll be okay.
Yeah, I think that sometimes we focus too much on one thing and not enough on like the full spectrum of what you could know. Like obviously, I mean, any 12-step program, is going to teach you the important aspects of, you know, drinking and stuff. But I personally, once I got to that point where I was like not doing the stuff that I used to do, it's like, okay, well, why was I doing these things? What in my head was creating the scenario that I felt like I needed it? And yeah, so I'm all there for you. I think that, I mean, I was diagnosed really early on with ADHD. And I think just growing up with a family that didn't really know how to voice, their emotions, their fears, their, insecurities, and talk to me about mine or just help me kind of be guided through life. My parents were just very old school, if you can say that. Like just very hands off. Let the school system really raise me. I learned more, from honestly my parents' friends than, or I'm sorry, my friends' parents than I did my own, as far as like emotions and I was really observant, and I think because they didn't talk to me about a lot of things, I was forced to be observant. But in the grand scheme of things, that's what caused a lot of my pain down the road was me making my own emotions worse because I didn't understand really coping mechanisms or, healthy ways to be able to consider or think about things. And so that's kind of where I harp on with my coaching program is at least while I'm building this out is essentially overcoming, the masking period where you feel like you have to be one way because it's either expected from you or that's what you were taught your entire life. And that was a big thing for me. I could just throw on a mask, even if I was living out of my car in the LA Fitness parking lot, I could just throw on a mask, go sell, house or go meet a client or, go to Starbucks, like nothing is wrong in my life. And I think that there's more people out there like that than there are who are, extremely, in the gutter with addiction. Just people who
Yeah,
are throwing on a mask because they don't know how to necessarily handle, the nuances of life.
I appreciate you being so honest. So, like, what we'll say, like, if you spot it, you got it. So, like, your authenticity. So there's such a lack of authenticity in the recovery community, outside recovery community, and like, uh, so one of the speakers I listened to, he calls it belief systems, BS, and they're so this. Okay, when I was in college, it was like get there and get done in 4 years, get a job at $20,000, $25,000 a year to start, get married. This whole like American dream that you were like plugged into,
Mm,
and it's all bullshit, for lack of a better phrase. Like who really knows what's right? So like ADHD, OCD. Like I call OCD commitment to excellence. There definitely is a right way and a wrong way to do things, and people with OCD usually know how to do it right, and they'll just do it all themselves. You know, so
yeah.
attention deficit disorder. A lot of times the school system can't see brilliance, so they're like the kid fidgets too much, so let's put them on Ritalin or something like that. And I'm not discounting what the professionals say, but it may be brilliance in the school system. Us into the Henry model, Ford Model T factory society of education isn't serving today's society. So it's really when you start going down rabbit holes. I don't go down too many rabbit holes, but like you're a successful real estate broker, odds are that may have been a misdiagnosed label, or like who that's just a label, and that's what I'm so big. I'm not don't live to your label.
Amen. Yeah. Identity is everything, dude. And if you let if you let these things like transform how you think about yourself, that's really when identities can be dangerous.
Yeah, dude. When I walked in recovery, they said 1 in 37 gonna make it. I said, well, I have mental health, man. Look at my jacket. So I got the longest odds in this room here. And like, no, God touched me, and here I am, and like, so I think so many people live to statistics and labels, but like we're all fingerprints of God's grace, and so by connecting God and unblocking some of those, we were just talking earlier about getting down to the root. If I get down to the root and put my roots in good soil and fertile soil with sunshine, I can bear more fruit for Him.
Mm,
So it's really like uncovering what's blocking me from my greatest expression to serve God.
it's good. Yeah, that's good. We don't necessarily just plant the fruit trees for ourselves, do we?
Nah, man, it's crazy, and the ripple effect we talk about. So, like your last podcast, James is one of my closest friends. We were coworkers, and so like his story, I could tell. He could probably tell my story, but he's a big part of my story because we were working in a mortgage office, call center, type A personality. I'm talking trash to everybody, and then here's the thing: they changed the commission structure, and James loses more money than anybody else on the floor, and I'm pissed off, not for James, but for my pocket. And he's on the other side of the room, and I'm like, and I could see he's just exuding dignity, grace, peace, and I'm like, yo, bro, like you practice your principles in all these affairs. That's part of the 12th step. And his face dropped, and he's like, yeah, man. And I was like, yo, I want what you have. What do I have to do? And so then from that question, I was driving to his place every Saturday morning, and yeah, man, that experience changed my life, and then that ripple effect of him sitting down with me, giving his most valuable asset, his time, has in turn changed my life and other people. Like this organization wouldn't be formed if it wasn't for James sharing his experience with me, allowing me to get closer to God, and then in turn trying to help more people or helping more people, and then the people I've helped help other people. It's like a spiritual, multi-level marketing thing. It's kind of cool, you know.
The biblical MLM.
Yeah, dude, it works, bro. Yeah.
I love it. So tell me more about your how you got to the point of creating your Angels Over Addiction coaching program.
So I went to a Tony Robbins event, and he does it's called the Dickens process.
Mhm.
And to bring down to a nutshell, so you talk to your future self, to your present day.
Is this UPW event? Sorry.
Yep. Yeah. Unleash the power within. Yep. So I
Yeah.
went there,
I went
and
to one in Chicago.
sweet. All right. So it's the Charles Dickens story. It goes to Christmas, future, present, and past. And so I said, what would happen? I don't have any children. I'm blessed with children, right? What would happen if one of my nieces or my nephew had mental health challenges and addiction problems, and Uncle Mike was too scared to play full out, and there's no organization to help him. And like from that moment, I made the decision. You know, like you talked about in your opening, you make this decision to change, and then God will bring in angels to you and point in the right way. So I made this decision. I'm going to play full out for mental health and addiction. And from there, I got a coach that is like no nonsense, no 3 days a week. You know, it costs me money, but the return on investment is sick. You know, so like to get a high level coach, you get high level results. And then from there, it just kept manifesting, just keep serving and serving and serving. And so I'm telling you, my Insta went from like 40 followers to like 2,400 followers in 6 weeks because I just collaborate with Victor, the good boss. You know, he helps people all over the country getting a treatment. And so, yeah, I mean, a friend podcasted me like podcasted him. It's like, I think you get along with my friend Mike. And so I've been helping him. I was with two of his clients yesterday and just serving, man, just pointing them to God, getting them to the dentist, having meals. There's one kid that I actually got eyes on him. And so it's crazy. On July 20th, I got eyes on him. His sober date's July 28th. And in July 2001, my best friend died from the disease. And so, like, God was able to reclaim that day for me. It's just the synchronicities of being, working for God and trying to be an agent for Him to the best of your ability. Yeah, it's just surreal, some of the stuff that's going on. The name, like, so when I was in the psych unit, when I was 26, 2 days without a drink, the, no, it's more like 2 weeks in. And I wasn't sure if I was going to recover. The social worker on the wing talked very real to me. So, like I say, she was my angel. So I listened to her instead of my addiction. And she was like, "You need help. Get help. You give me." And then out of places like this for the rest of your life, there's an IOP coming. Ask for help. And so I listened to her. I listened to my angel over my addiction that day, and then that transformed. So I know, like, the way the social media gets now, being tagged on a few of Victor's viral things. People hear this. Somebody drinking right now is hearing this. And like, if you want help, man, just get help. You know, reach out to Patrick, myself, whatever. And then what I was also thinking too is people are playing small. Like, all right, Patrick's helping people. Let me DM Patrick and get him to help somebody in Asheville or Raleigh or Texas. Nah, dude, try to help the person directly and let us be like the background and show you how to help more people, man. Like, let us empower you to help more people.
Mhm.
Yeah, each one can help. Every person can help. You know.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Yeah. I think there's some people out there who carry a really fantastic story. And some people who are almost afraid to share it just because there's a lot of shame and grief and, things like that involved with, being authentic and coming clean on, especially on camera. And so a lot of the people I have just have fantastic stories about recovery, addiction. They go in pretty hard with like the intake form on what has caused them to, be who they are and what their hardest falls were, what was the turning point and the transformation period and how, they dug themselves out of the hole that they created for themselves. And I think that when we recover out loud, we do tell our stories out loud that allows other people to feel okay with the grief and the shame that they're experiencing just from being able to, show that, recovery is possible
Right.
in any stage.
I heard. So my girlfriend, we go to this mega church in Coral Springs, Church by the Glades, and so it's like it's a whole rock show thing, and nothing I ever experienced growing up in the Catholic Church. But I'm like, cool.
Yeah,
My
great.
girlfriend likes it. Her daughter likes it. It's
Yeah.
cool.
Blaze?
Church by the Glades, so it's by the Everglades.
Hey.
It's in Coral Springs. Yeah. So one of the messages is when you said shame. So I know a lot of us have shame in recovery.
Mhm.
So the message was they were talking about creation, and so Eve ate the apple, Adam ate the apple, and then they had shame. So the shame came from the enemy.
Hmm.
It wasn't from God. They
Right.
got tricked by the enemy, and then they were shameful. So that's a fruit of the enemy. Us in recovery, like the bad analogy I had is everybody wants to put on a Sunday best, but nobody's willing to talk about the brown underwear. You have to be real 100%. Because if I can't be real and authentic in whatever addiction ministry, whatever psychologist I'm speaking with, whatever coach, if I'm not like truly authentic, that shit's gonna block me. Like I gotta get down and gritty with one person. And James was that for me. I had trust issues big time, and so you gotta trust one person. And I trusted James first, and then like what happened is like that opened my heart up to like actually love another person or receive love from another person because we're so head centric as a society. Mental health and addiction, I'm thinking like people say I got thoughts in my head. You kidding me? I got voices, the whole nine, bro. Look at my mental health jacket. I got the whole.
Movie happening.
I got a committee, dude. I got a quantum computer in there, everything.
Yeah.
But when I get heart centered, that's why the big meditation is so. When I breathe through my heart, get really into breath work, then I turn down this and I operate through here. And this is just full of love. You look at like the Christian paintings, you never see Jesus like pointing to his head. It's always heart. So I think if we let our hearts connect and our hearts express ourselves, we're a different society, a different community, a different church, the whole nine.
Yeah. No, I agree, man. I think, yeah, I often, I teach intermediate at my church for fifth and sixth graders, and I always talk about the fruits of the spirit, and obviously, love being one of the fruits of the spirit, and kindness and graciousness. But in the world today, all we primarily see, at least, if you look from the outside looking in, all you see is really like the seven deadly sins. And so I've been trying to really influence them to start looking for the fruits of the spirit amongst students, teachers, things like that. And if you see it's missing, you bring it to the table. You bring, the kindness, you bring the love, you bring the graciousness, you bring the self control, the peace. Like you bring all that to the table if you don't see it there for other people to eat.
I love that. Yeah. Another church I go to here, so Pastor Case at the Ave Church in Delray, he was like, "Yo, run to your kids with the Bible." Like that was Corinthians. Was that Corinthians 13, where love is all that? Yo, if you're a parent, you're a teacher, teaching at something, run to your kids with the Word of God. Like run to them because the world's going to come at them. The world's coming at them all the time. They're on their phones. God knows what's on their phone. Like run at them with the good news. Don't let them get to be, the 18-year-old kid from New Jersey, drinking moonshine with these good old boys down there. Run to your children. Get them to God first before the enemy tries to sneak in because it's gonna come in. I love that, dude. I taught CCD. That's like the Christian. That's a Catholic. Whatever Bible school. My first couple years of recovery, and it was cool. It's such a cool experience and challenging too, though. Because here you are, you're put in a position of authority for other people's connection to God, and so like it's life shows up there. I had worked in corrections in North Carolina. And I was like, these kids ain't gonna punk me, like going in with an attitude like that, and it was like, whoa, slow your roll, Mike. And then the situations happen, the world comes in, and I was like, yo, it's like it's such a blessing to be able to help other people and point them to God. So I
Yeah.
did that for a few years, really great. And then I'm sure God has bigger things in your life with ministry.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I mean, I'm super excited about like the direction that my life is going. I don't think I've been really ever in a position to where I'm not trying to actively create it. It's just been happening for me. Just to kind of recap a little bit more about my story, Mike. Me and my wife spent 8 years apart, divorced, mostly because of, prior addictions and stuff like that. And we just were really, really young. We had our daughter when we were 24 years old. And so you can imagine, we were growing up basically at the same time that we had a kid. Well, after 2 years in is right when we decided to split. And then we spent, all those years apart. And then my recovery story came from my wife. I mean, if it wasn't for her, I'd probably be stuck in the same patterns because that's just where I was. And I was not able to stop masking to build, a better life. I just kept hitting the repeat button every single year, as far as what I wanted to do versus what I was actually doing, and those two just not aligning. Um, Obviously, I was trying, but I think there was a lot of mental health stuff in there too from just, the drugs and alcohol abuse. But all that being said, I think her opening up her heart to me, you talked about like coming from a heart space earlier. Her opening up her heart space to me allowed me to see, obviously, that the past was the past. And if I wanted to build a new life, I could decide today to build a new future. And ever since then, man, life's just been happening for me. This whole podcast thing it's been really neat to embark on because I didn't know, like, I had planned in my head to have like 4 to 6 sessions a month. Well, I've been doing, roughly three, anywhere between 2 to 5 a week as far as content. So it's been a lot more than what I anticipated, but it's been a blessing. And that's why I kind of wanted to branch out and start the coaching program, is to be able to help more people, because I realized, that's really where my pride and I'm not pride, but passion is at. And I think my pride has always leaned towards what has given me the most money. So like that's where real estate has always come into play, is, that's created a great income, but it's always created a transactional lifestyle. So it was never, leading from the heart. It was never about what I can do for these people, but what those people can decide on so that I can get paid. That's kind of how I looked at it. It was very transactional, very one sided. What can they do for me? And then now, with real estate, obviously I still love my job, and it's no longer feels transactional because I truly try to pour into, my clients, not just the real estate and, providing a good service, but I mean, just through conversation, bringing God into the room, and kind of testing the waters to see if that's something that they're interested in, if they've had some church hurt in the past. And then honestly, I mean, I'm as open with you as I am with them about my story and things that I've struggled with. And I've openly told someone that, hey, 3 years ago I was living in my car, so like I can tell you right now, like, whatever you're experiencing today is not necessarily where your future is going to line up. It's just in this moment, whatever you're feeling, it feels like a lot, but it's not, who you are. And yeah, so I think that's the coolest part about leading from this place and just having a different perspective on life. And I think that, through your coaching program, through the sober broker, and then through other avenues that people continue to find Christ, I think that that's going to be a powerful change in our nation, in our community. I mean, we're seeing alcohol sales, plummet. We're seeing the uprise of Christ followers. We're seeing the uprise of people who are really intentionally starting to lead their life. And so I just feel a huge swing happening in the world today. And again, it comes back around to the initial conversation that we had about, RAS. What you see is what will happen. And as long as you're maintaining a positive attitude, like you mentioned, and doing things that are good for you and supporting your body, then good things will continue to happen.
Yeah, he's definitely moving in big ways, and it's like I can see it from the periphery, but yeah, I mean, so we have Recovery Church down here. I think they started 6 or 7 years ago. There was two or three, and now there's 120 all over the country, and it's just God is just moving so much, and I love what your story with the reconciliation. And as I'm thinking, like as you continue to grow in Christ, your relationship with Christ, and serve people, and as you become a transformational leader, just how many homes you could transform. Because I'm willing to bet you're not the only married couple that's had challenges. 99% probably have had challenges, and now your story, your experience, is for a greater purpose. And I'll just share one of my best friends from college, Heath Connor. When I was first getting sober, he was a youth pastor, and now he's a great pastor in North Carolina. He's going through some health challenges. I love him. I've been praying for him and trying to serve his family as best as I can. But God has such a greater plan than we know about. It's like, and then the other thing that jumped out to me when you're sharing is just the like in recovery. When we talk about the language of the heart, and some times people are just they're just transactional, like just don't drink. It comes way more than just not drinking. Like your whole life has to transform. How you show up at an opening, how you talk to the customer, the past customer, everything. Like your life transforms. That's such a big thing. What we talk about in our coaching program is transformational coaching. There's a lot of sober coaches out there, They're pseudo sponsors in 12-step world. Transformational coaching is like, yo, let's get down to nooks and crannies, bro. What's blocking you from your best expression so you can recover out loud? So you're not hiding out from in the back of the church pew or in the back of the recovery meeting. Like, what do we really have to get down to? Like, what are the causes and conditions, the roots that we can reshape, reform, and let your spirit come out? And then so it's really about establishing the agency is what's been my mantra here over the past couple weeks. There's, like if I'm an agent, let's say I work for your real estate company, all right? You're the broker, I'm the agent. I have to represent Patrick brokerage to the best of my ability. So like the analogy I always say, if I open a Chick-fil-A, I better be selling chicken. I can't sell strombolis and pizza, right? So now as a follower of Christ, you have that reconciliation. I gotta show redemption to other people. For me, like my God shows up in the story of the prodigal son. I gotta run at my son. I gotta run at him and hug him and show him love. Cash him back in, put the ring on, show him nothing but love, and let him like be restored. Like, oh yeah, I'm getting emotional here, but it's just like whatever the quality of God is that you see, like we're called to be agents of that and show that. There's so many different fruits of the spirit, and so it's like we all have this unique fingerprint of God's grace. Whatever He's calling out on you, just do it and live it. Just help somebody else, man.
Good, Mike. Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, I think Pastor Rick Warren talks about the Great Commission often in the Gospel of Matthew. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, teaching them to observe all that I've commanded for you. So, kind of like commanded for you, is obviously what he's done with your life and how he's shown you that, everything that you have learned and have gone through, take that, go teach other people how to, recover from the same thing.
Mhm.
That's why I think when we tell our stories, it's so powerful because, you know, I don't, I don't, I never truly like was an addict. Like I don't define myself as an addict, but how I do define myself is a survivor of trauma. My story may not match up to everyone else's. Your story may not match up to everyone else's, but someone else who has struggled with the same thing that you have. Maybe not the exact same, but obviously, like, the grand scheme of it, if you paint a picture of your life, someone else is going to have a similar picture that they painted. And it may not be all exactly the same, but, ideally, that's, the point of when we tell our stories, other people hear them who have also struggled with similar things.
Yeah, a big thing we talk about in recovery community, so identify, not compare. So trauma starts with the letter T. It can be a big T or it could be a little T, but it's still T. So it's like I've heard some heavy things over the years. And my trauma is just being told, quit crying, I'll give you something to cry about. Doesn't seem like a big thing. A lot of parents say it, but then I internalize that. And here I am, a grown man crying going to this podcast. I'm like, no, don't show your emotions. Don't, so then that's something that trips on you. It's
Yeah.
crazy, dude.
Yeah.
So it's like whatever's blocking you from your authentic self, your true self, your language of your heart, that's trauma, man. And I've done EMDR. That's probably the new thing. And that's really helped me tremendously, man. As a kid, I remember there was something on TV and I said something sacrilegious. So I thought, I'm a good Catholic. Well, like, man, I'm going to hell already. I'm 6 years old. And so I went back to that during the EMDR session, and a great priest talked to me that time and said, God is in that way. But in my spirit, there was a separation that happened. So during EMDR, I went back to that age. And so I do all these other modalities and bring it back into the recovery community, my faith community. I'm not the fundamentalist that's like, oh, it's not here, it can't, like who am I to say what is or what isn't God? I just have my own life experience. Um, but yeah, just seeking outside help to bring back to help others. Because a lot of us are very rigid, the belief systems that are passed down from generation to generation. No, you can't talk about that, Patrick. Good boys don't, Patrick, you don't do that. We don't do this in our family. Buckle up and
Break the
it's a
stigma.
bunch of bullshit. A bunch
Yeah.
of bullshit. Yep.
Yeah. Break the stigma, man.
Yeah. And they don't know, like they were doing the best they know. You know what I'm saying? I'm not like my mother will listen to some of my content and do online and she's like, I didn't say that to you. I'm like, slow your roll, moms. You know what I'm saying? Like, but they like there's no playbook on how to be a parent. You just learn as you go, so there's just so much to like as we grow as adults and Christians, like now, it's just it's a process, man. So that's why seeking wise counsel and like listening to somebody, taking their suggestions, and then really comes down to connecting to God. He'll let you know if you're doing right or wrong. He's gonna let you know.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. What do you what do you feel like has helped you the most in the process of, like, it's okay. Now you're a coach, right? Before, you had prior addictions and issues that you were dealing with. In that transitional phase, what did you find helped you the most to get from there to here?
So many. I mean, really, I would say we call them elder statesmen. So the guys that have walked this journey before me, whether it be in business, Christianity, recovery, coaching. Like I have like a squad of guys that I go to for certain things. My dad passed away 17, 18 years ago. So his best friend, my uncle Pete, he helps me now. He fills a void. He's not my father. My father was my best friend. So I just have people that are just like there for me. And really seeking counsel has been the biggest thing, and just listening. And James, one of my closest friends, a mentor to me, man. And just seeking counsel has really been the biggest thing.
Yeah, he called me yesterday just to say hey, and I've never met him in person. I know he lives here now in Charlotte, North Carolina. Not here, but I'm in Western North
Hmm.
Carolina, but he's only 2 hours away. But we met through on Facebook, and he friend requested me and sent me a message right away saying, that he wanted to be on the podcast and I loved what, he was looking at and stuff. And now, I feel like he's a close friend and I can attest to why you see him in such a high light because he's just such a kind soul. He he's empathetic, he's genuine, he's authentic, he's not afraid to tell his story and the most raw form. And yeah, I see a lot of good in him, and he leads from the heart. So yeah, it's good to seek out other people to be able to help you along the way. I know I had obviously Megan, my wife, who was in recovery first, and I was still living out of my car. She didn't know that at the time, and whenever she invited me back into the house, I didn't necessarily want another relationship with her, but she was just like, "Hey, do you feel something out of this?" And I was like, "No." And I didn't want to, believe that God was really working in me to change. And I mean, we had this ongoing joke where, after we had already agreed that, our kind of we're doing this, we're recommitting to each other and stuff, that she was asking me like, well, when we like you just start telling people, and I'm like, oh well, babe, we're only 6 weeks in. It's just this ongoing joke that we've had for a while
Hmm.
because, you know, you never really know what's going to come from the things that you commit to. And I think often we need those third party people to help us to commit to things that we need to, embark on or do. Again, it's the power of telling stories and understanding where we're at, how we got to where we are now, and who we became in the process, and helping others learn, the process so that they can also do the same.
Beautiful, man. Yeah, and the power of stories. So Jesus's message was all parables, the power of the story. So like each of us have our own story. Your story is amazing. So many guys come into my recovery. If I just reconcile with my wife or get my wife back, or what, and then it's like, okay, talk to Patrick. They did through church. No, it's like you never know, dude.
It was nothing but God, bro. I mean,
Yeah.
he was working through Megan, right?
Hmm.
It was me, and then he just doubled down. As soon as I started rejecting the idea, is when he came after my heart, and he was like, "All right, I'm going to show you what you've been missing." And so I've watched her change. I mean, hope she doesn't mind me saying this, but she lost, like 70 pounds from stopping drinking to, and she's tiny, she's like
Hmm.
5'1". So, I just watched her change. I remember at the time I was living in Charlotte and I came back for a parent teacher conference and she walked in the room and I was like, whoa, who are you? you know, like that's my old life. And yeah, I would like to say that's the moment that I saw her, started seeing her differently. But then, obviously I was still going through my stuff and drinking and, doing drugs and whatnot. So it took me a little bit longer to realize, that that opportunity had created itself right in front of us.
I love so I my girlfriend Mary, I love her daughters. So when we hit our last time we hit drama, because every relationship has drama, I went to my friend, Pastor Floyd. I'm like, bro, I don't know what's up. I think I got to double down on my relationship with God, just what you said. And that, so, and then simultaneously, she did the same thing. And then here's like our first date on a Saturday night was to her church, Church by the Glades. Like, that's really cool. We were able to go there this past Saturday night or Sunday. And I was like, this is where we had our first Saturday night date was here. And it's always when we connect to God, when we bring it to Him, He's got this other plan that we know nothing about, and then when you're talking about the parent teacher conference, what I hear is like both of you care for your daughter. So you're both at the parent teacher conference, you ain't even connected. And then here she walks in, strut, and then you're like, oh, hey, girl, hey, didn't know you look like, and like God had this other plan, though, this other plan, and it's just in hindsight, we can see it. But in the real moment, we're like, oh my God, but this master plan, and I feel in my heart, man, it's so much bigger than selling a few pieces of land and doing a few podcasts. I can feel it, man, and I'm usually, knock on wood, I'm usually right about these things. It's like I think a greater part of his plan for you is coming. Like when you mentioned Rick Warren, The Purpose Driven Life, I was given that book in sobriety early, and so I do an online ministry, Ground Zero Ministry. I help them out on Tuesday nights, and we run the Zoom. So kids in treatment is like, yeah, my daddy gave me The Purpose Driven Life. So now I'm reading that, and my mom's reading it, and now we connect every day about the lesson. On the purpose. So this kid's in treatment, but he's being discipled by his parents and helping his parents, and his parents are helping him just through a great piece of literature that was God inspired. So like God has this master plan that we know nothing about, but in hindsight we can understand it. But in real time, it's like, oh, okay, I got this book, thank that, whatever. I don't even believe in God, but all right, I'll open it up, and now suddenly all this greater plan's coming, dude. It's crazy.
Yeah. No, I feel it too, bro. And yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. I mean, I think the more times that you, recommit yourself to, the greater commission and seeing opportunity, just within your day to day. I mean, I think a lot of people feel like they don't have time, to maybe like prophesy the word or evangelize, but in all reality, it's as easy as just doing it in your day to day. I mean, I left church on Sunday and was driving home, and we had this core leaders meeting that we attended, and I had an extra bottle of water that I didn't drink from there and a bag of chips, and I was like, I'm gonna need this later. And I was driving, and our church is in a county and area that's pretty impoverished. Uh, I mean, it's a big, nice church, but it's smack dab in the middle, of this area that has probably the lowest or the highest rate of like homelessness and people who just need assistance. Sorry, my screen just switched. And basically, through that, I just lost my train of thought. I'll be
Yeah.
honest.
So you're on Sunday. You went back to
Thank you.
your
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
church.
Thank you. Sorry, my camera switched and the
We
lighting
got
just
you. We're good. We're good.
completely got me off rails. But yeah, I had this bottle of water and this bag of chips, and I was going down to the corner to, get on the interstate, and there's this homeless lady on the side of the street with a sign, and so I gave her this bag of chips and this bottle of water. I said, I'm sorry, I don't have any cash, but this is all I have. And it's just kind of one of those things. Like it is a God thing. I mean, you can look at it and say like, oh, well, there's just convenience or coincidence that she was standing there. But what other instance would I had some substance so that she can use and enjoy, like a bag of barbecue chips and a bottle of water, standing on the
Hmm.
side, asking for money. And I don't know. I think people have a meek look about the homeless, thinking that it's looks bad on society, and it maybe does. I mean, at the end of the day, their stories are their stories and their decisions are their decisions. Do we support, them well enough to where they can get back on their feet? Probably not. I mean, our society is targeted towards profits, and homelessness is just not a profitable business model. And so at the end of the day, being able to be a servant to those people is ultimately, one of my greatest passions too, is because since I've struggled with not having a home, I find I have a place in my heart for people who are struggling like that. And I mean, I wish I could just open my doors to, people,
Mhm.
but we have a rather small home and, it wouldn't be necessarily conducive with two kids. But at the end of the day, you know, the greater commission is spreading the word of Jesus and getting it out there in any way that we can do it. And just last night, we were in a recovery meeting, and this guy gets up, and his name's Michael, and he brought up cooler full of these little handouts that you can give to people when you're evangelizing. And so I was like, wow, like, now I have something that I can go off of with these things that I can give out that not only, offer some kind of substance for someone who's in need. It also offers, a little pamphlet about the Word of God, a little sticker that says Jesus saves, and it's just a little message that you can kind of continue to give out, as a form of, working with the Greater Commission.
Yeah, when I was saying earlier about July 27th, so his name is Sean. So Victor called me and said, "Get eyes on this guy. I want to make sure he's there. I'm going to fly in and bring him to treatment tomorrow." So he was living down in Broward, it's county south of me. So I love this kid. He's just a cool kid. He's had 7 months sobriety, right? Um, it's so crazy. So he was on the street for 6 years. He got an opportunity to go into treatment.
It's a long time.
Went to treatment, long-term treatment. He's doing good. We're helping him get his like social security card, ID, all that. But I'm with this kid all the time, and I'm not hitting him in the side of the head with the Bible. I get him Sunday. His sister is a works at a church and they go to Sunday service, and so I always get him down there on Sundays. And we kick it. We do a little video for social media. And so when I picked him up this Sunday, he's like, "Guess what? They want me to give my testimony at church." And I was like, "Okay, brother. Now we're doing something. Okay, we got to practice. Well, I'm just going to speak from the heart. So, well, let's go to this other ministry. You hear this guy can preach really well, Seekers Ministry, but like God has this master plan all along, and I'm just able to kick back, And so I've come into a lot of contact with people that are recovering that were on the street, and so like their playbook is always ask the name and develop rapport. Like, "Hey, Bob, I'm Mike. Nice to meet you. How you doing today?" And then I was always like, "Hey, man, I just give water or I'll buy them food. I'm not going to let them get high." And they're like, "Bro, they could just take that money and get high with it. You're making a judgment. Give them money if you need to, and just show them love." And like what I've learned is a lot of times they're going to work that same corner. They'll have somebody else watching it, but there's an opportunity to disciple. And so how Sean was found, we call him TikTok. Somebody prayed for him the week before, and man was Sean says one of the regulars that would come to him and took him by the hand, prayed over him like this. Somebody 2 cars behind took a video, and it went on TikTok, went viral on TikTok, 7 million views on TikTok. Victor saw that, and then that made that plan to get him. And now this kid, I got him in a better halfway here. He's doing great, man. And it's just all like God has this greater plan that I know. And so I try to decipher on the down low. I'm just like, "Hey, man, what's up? Nice to meet you." I show them love. That's Jesus' message was all about love. So I show them love. And I just, I'm catfishing, baby. Just run with that line a little bit. And then I hook them in when they're ready. You know what I'm saying? But it's just, I'm just very cool to people. And I don't try to hit them on, some people may say you got to do it this way or that way. Hey, man, I'm doing the best I can. You can do it better. Rock it, dude. Let's do it together. Let's do it. Let's all do it. You know?
I love it, Mike.
Yeah, dude.
Buddy, I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you being vulnerable and telling us a little bit more about you and what led you to create the Angels Over Addiction coaching program. And I can see obviously God working through you and through your program. And I'm praying that, you continue to impact people and that you continue to just allow God to work within you and show you, the next steps in your life and where this coaching program will take you and how it'll impact others. And I see that in your life, man. And I proclaim, just people coming to you to look for guidance, for you to give them good words, and to continue to just lead them to Christ and to a better life.
Thank you, man. I appreciate your prayers, and I pray for you. We had that nice prayer before we got going there, and I'm just really thankful to have known you, to get to know you better, and then again, what others can do to support not only you but the Great Commission is really what it comes down to. And so, Christ is very powerful. He's doing something in our nation and our world right now. Let's not back down from His call. Is really my message, and let's do this.
Amen, dude.
All right.
Amen. Well, I just want to give a little outro here, Mike. Obviously, this podcast I created for one reason, and this is exactly it. It's proof that sobriety isn't the end of your life, and it's the beginning of your leadership. We talk about the fall, the rebuilding, and the discipline and the faith that comes along with it. But the legacy that comes after surrenders is what allows us to be able to take our story and turn it into, a greater commission to lead people to Christ. And addiction isolates people, recovery connects people. And if this episode has added any value to you, please subscribe, leave a review, follow. There will be more. And the more it grows, the more people we can reach. And I'm grateful for you, Mike, for being here and sharing your story again, brother.
Appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. This is the Sober Broker, guys. I appreciate you.
Much love.